Francesco Rizzuto joins me now from Liverpool. He's Dean of the School of Law at Liverpool Hope University. Before we speak, Francesco, I just want to bring you a response that's coming from the NATO chief, Jens Stoltenberg, who said that any attack upon NATO forces would be met with a forceful response. Obviously, that is off the back of Donald Trump's comments. Donald Trump inviting Russia to attack NATO allies. I mean, it's classic Trump, isn't it? It's classic Trump, the businessman, because he's basically, it seems to me, he's just trying to scare everyone to pay up their fees, as the way he sees it. Do you think that NATO members will take that in the spirit that he intended?
I think. Good afternoon, by the way. Yeah, and his memory is faulty. We've just heard also that he was talking this leader of a great power in Europe. It was actually the president of the European Commission, who is, of course, not the leader of a state. Look, the guy is completely, how can I put it? Slightly delusional. It wasn't actually him disrupting things in 2014 when he was president a few years ago that actually got NATO countries in Europe to start spending money. It was actually the invasion of Ukraine that really spurred things on, and things are accelerating there. But frankly, to almost invite the person who is threatening Europe to attack us because we're delinquents in Europe is balmy, but it is a challenge for Europe. Let's make no mistake about this. European countries, European members of NATO, I've actually got the figures here in terms of expenditure. There's quite a few who I think need to spend a little bit more. And not just because of NATO, but we basically need to spend more on equipping our armed forces. We're not, in a sense, we're fighting a proxy war, but we've not geared up for it. And hence all the arguments about can we give the Ukrainians enough ammunition and so on. So it's a real problem in terms of Europe being able to defend itself. But to just bleat on a little bit, the fact is, by him speaking this way, encourages many in Europe who think, my goodness, if he is president again, we just dread to think we need to be autonomous of the United States. And so I think he's actually giving us Europeans a great spur to seek a certain detachment from a President Trump 4 years or so, if he gets elected, of course.
Well, everything you've just said leads me into talking about Finland, who are looking to elect a new president today. And of course, Finland, off the back of the war in Ukraine, seemed to almost run into the arms of NATO, the impression being that that would offer them some security from their neighbours, Russia. Do you think Finland might be, as you suggested, perhaps regretting joining a club where Donald Trump could soon be one of the most influential figures?
I think you're absolutely right. Look, I don't know of many Europeans, there might be the odd one hiding under the closet, who is looking forward to a Trump presidency. But again, I think that whoever wins in Finland, and I presume it's going to be Stubb, are committed to NATO, but they're also committed to the European Union and building up the European Union. Because in the end, whether in the context of NATO or not, the fact of the matter is that Europe needs to equip itself with the means to defend itself autonomously of the United States if necessary. We simply cannot in Europe remain attached to the US and the whims of US democracy. The Americans have the right to elect who they want, though I think, frankly, it would be rather interesting to elect somebody like Trump. And by the way, the Supreme Court will have a final say on this, rule of law and so on. Finland have not made a mistake, nor has Sweden, and because quite clearly collective security is still important for rather small European states. And as you know, Finland has a massive frontier with Russia, so they can't play the neutral game anymore. So I don't think there's any regret there. Really at all. I think from their point of view, there is an assurance. Of course, they've also signed a treaty with the United States, separate from NATO. But again, if Mr. Trump comes along, what will happen to that? Though we must add that Finland does spend more than 2% of its GDP on its defense. So they will be in his good books. The people in his bad books would be countries like Italy, who spend only 1.46%, Germany 1.57%, just to whittle these off. By the way, Turkey 1.31%, if these figures are to be correct, Spain 1.26%. So I think the Europeans have got to get their act together, but not under threat. They have to do it for their own reasons.
Francesco, great to get your analysis. My guest, Francesco Rizzuto from Liverpool Hope University.
Pleasure.